Welcome to the Heat of Command podcast, mastering the art of fire service leadership.
Where we, your hosts, aim to teach you how to use introspection and self-reflection to be your most authentic, genuine self, leader, and human being.
And now, here are your hosts. This is Kyle Matusik.
And Kerry Henderson. Thanks for joining.
Back with another episode of the Heat of Command podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a question that we often hear every time we go out and speak. Typically when we go out and speak kind of afterwards, and for other speakers out there, there's some people that linger around and then they come up and start talking to you. And one of the things we always hear is, you need to come speak in my organization. People in my organization need to hear what you have to say. And the list goes on and on and on about, the stuff that we talk about in terms of leadership, authenticity, introspection, empathy, compassion, all those words, and how a lot of people are craving this stuff, yet we are in a culture and a time in society. I want to preface, this episode is not just going to be fire service. I think it's a societal thing that we're seeing, and the things we talk about in some mindsets are considered soft and weak. We think they're strength, and at the end of the day, they're hard to do. And it's how do we develop these atmospheres when you're in organizations that don't foster an environment for you to grow as a leader in this way, that don't lead this way, that are essentially it's a lacking leadership within your organization. And again, this isn't just fire service, this is society-wide. How do we survive those? And I think that's a great question, because at the end of the day, we can always talk about leadership. We can go out there and educate ourselves, read the books. But the people who really need to be doing that are not. And the people who need to listen to podcasts like ours or other leadership podcasts or read leadership books are not doing that. And then I think you also have the population of people who go to classes, maybe specifically fire service classes, and, they might get an ego boost, or because instructors are, singing their song and saying the things they want to hear. And what are they bringing back to the organization in terms of leadership? Some of the same old, or are we getting progressive and bringing new ideas? So I think it's a challenging time, especially for people who see a road, see a light, see a direction that things could go or should go, and yet it's roadblock after roadblock, and it's overcoming that. And that's very challenging, because a lot of times we're not going to change others, but what can we do for ourselves to excel in our environments, overcome the hardships, and continue to grow as professionals and effective leaders?
Yeah. When people come up to us after our classes and say, I need my chief to hear your message, or I need my captain to hear your message. And what you just said, Kyle, is hit the nail on the head, that the folks that really need the message are not doing this kind of work, because it's the old theory of confirmation bias. You are always looking to confirm what you believe to be true, and only searching out that information. So if you believe that the way that you supervise and lead and treat others is right, you're only going to listen to, look for, read, watch, talk to people that also believe that or feel that way. So you're not going to listen to our podcast because you're going to listen to 5 minutes of us and go, yeah, no, that's not right, because that's not what I believe. It doesn't confirm what I believe to be true and right. Instead of a growth mindset and a mindset like we have, where you're always trying to evolve and do this introspection thing that you wrote about. And for me, and I just read, I'm reading essays for the Darley essay contest, and I have no idea at this point who wrote any of them, but someone had written about, the idea of a mature leadership mind, and how to develop a mature mindset and a mature decision making, where you're constantly questioning and trying to learn and trying to confirm that it is what you're doing actually right, or is there another way? Is there something different? So now when I listen to stuff, if I don't agree with it, I'm intrigued. And I'm like, why? Why do I not agree with what this person is saying? Is it because it's something way outside of my box and I'm not comfortable with it? Or is it just definitely against the way I treat people or lead people? So I can't imagine. In this episode, you're going to have to talk a whole lot more than I am, because I work in an organization where a lot of this stuff is happening. Now, don't get me wrong. I've definitely been in experiences and definitely earlier on in my career worked for or around people that just didn't get it. And it was, as a young firefighter, there were times where I'm like, this is terrible. But I was really lucky for most of my career to work for some pretty strong leaders that got it for the most part. And it's gotten even better since in my 20 plus years that I've been there. But today is your day, Kyle. And I can talk about, I watch people in organizations around me that definitely live with this. And I've had them ask me before, like, they'll say, who I work for, or where I work. How do I stay in it? How do I keep going? And these are some great people that are smart and motivated and doing great things in their organization at their level and within their ability to make change. But gosh, I just look at them and I'm like, I don't know how you do it either. I don't. And the easiest answer is don't just
Right.
leave. But that's not, that's not the
or conform, right? Like that's
no.
it. Like leave or conform, or you're going to have some big time struggles. Now, like you said, I want to ensure our listeners, like, we're not saying that we have the answers or that this is it, but what we do is we're willing to have the conversation and have that growth mindset and try new things and fail at things. And I think that's okay. And I think a lot of people are afraid of failing. Like, if I try this and it doesn't work, then what? And culturally within our industry, if you fail at something, everybody's going to make sure you know it, and they're not going to let you live it down. And I think that is a very toxic thing, and it's crazy, especially when you're trying things. I think it's such a large puzzle, and there's so many pieces to it when we look at effective leadership. So this is just one minute part, and every time we have an episode, it's like one piece of a very large puzzle. So it's not like we can cover every issue all the time. And it's just, how do we remain resilient in the environments we find ourselves in that are not motivating, that don't have leadership, and yet you're doing the work to become an effective leader, and yet you have nothing to guide you. You have nobody to guide you within an organization. And being resilient and learning how to overcome those challenges is one of the hardest things. And everybody looks for that easy answer. And a lot of times, I talked about the Fire Service Women of Illinois, like, we try to fit in this box of what it means to be a firefighter, right? We have this idea. We watch the TV shows, we read the articles, we have this mentality of what we think it's supposed to be, and we try to fit in that box and become that identity. And I think, for those that are exploring and trying to grow, the first thing is to pull yourself out of that. And again, that alone is going to be incredibly challenging for you, because you're going against the grain. And I think that's where real good leaders are made, is when you're going against the grain and not conforming to the idea of what the industry is. And I think that's in any part of society, any industry. Like, when you don't conform to the normal, you question things as to why. Some things are good, some things are bad. But that's like the first part. Like, where does your identity lie in terms of the profession that you find yourself in? And if it's solely in that tradition and that culture, it's pulling yourself out. So that's like step one, pull yourself out. Like, look at your organization from the outside looking in. And again, very challenging. Are there people within your organization that you can do that with? Or is it pulling yourself completely out and just kind of taking that audience seat and take a look and watch what's going on?
Yeah. And I think too is look at what you can control, because there's so much you can't. And firefighters, myself included, where we all want to be like, and I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday, like, stuff goes on in the fire service that will piss you off, and it has nothing to do with you, right? Like,
Right.
the chiefs will make some decision about some other person getting to do something or not getting to do something, and this whole other group of people is butthurt about it. And so now I have to tell myself, like, that's nothing to do with me. That them getting treatment that is better or worse than what I think should have happened has nothing to do with me. And so I have to almost, stay in my bubble. Like, what can I control, and what is within my control, and what can I have an effect on, and what doesn't matter?
Mm-hmm.
Because earlier in my career, and even still sometimes, like I get all bent out of shape about something going on in our organization. And it's like, tomorrow, will it matter? 6 months from now, will it matter? And how does that even affect me? And I guess I feel like we're all crusaders for like all the things. It's like, I've got to stand up for what's right for the guy at 5C and I work on at 1A. It's like, I- if it truly is like an ethical thing, yeah, absolutely stand up. But a lot of things, we just got to learn to stay in our own sandboxes sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, sometimes things happen at a level above me and above the level that you find that people, our listeners, find yourself at, that you have no understanding as to why. So not letting those impact you, because unless you're trying to figure out the why behind it, because there are a lot of things administratively that, yeah, we might not agree with, but there's a reason they're happening. And, we kind of hit on that last episode. Like, you just have to kind of roll with the punches sometimes, not just fight everything that you're against, but some things are going to happen that you're not going to agree with, but they have to. And you might not understand why they have to. So,
And
yeah, go
uh,
ahead.
and also, like, if you're a station officer or a senior guy or girl at your station, going back to living in what you can control. My husband, and if you guys have listened to earlier episodes, he's a ladder captain. We interviewed him. He will always say, there's so little that the ivory castle that admin can do to affect me day to day, to ruin my day. He's like, there's just not really anything unless you're going to take my paycheck. He said, I decide to come to work and I decide how this day goes for this crew. And that's how he shows up to work. And if you're in that position, I think that's so true, is you can have so much positive, wonderful, fantastic influence for the people that you're around every day, that keep doing it for them and keep doing it for you, and keep it, you know even if outside on a grander scheme things aren't going great, but think of how much influence you have day to day showing up in the firehouse. And even if you're a new firefighter, you can influence so much in the way you show up to work. I think one of our first quotes from HM Leadership Concepts when we founded this business was, be the reason somebody wants to come to work and not the reason they don't. Because we've all worked around people that just make the day miserable. Like,
Yeah.
why would you want to be that person?
Because they're tough and it's the fire
No.
service, right? But that's like the mentality, right? Like, you need to harden up a little bit, and you need, this is what you signed up for. This is the tradition. It's like, that's all BS. No,
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, so totally agree. And so like I said, pulling yourself kind of out of that culture, not trying to fit in your box, and really learn who you are, and your strengths and your weaknesses. That in and of itself is a lot of work and takes a lot of time and effort. So, starting there, if you find yourself in this culture of, how do I progress on, So it's pulling yourself out of that culture. And then, another thing that we've talked about is finding your people, I think is very important. And that could be in or out of the fire service. That could be in a completely different industry. That could be in extracurricular activities. But people who are willing to listen to you, challenge you, that you're not afraid to be vulnerable with, have real conversations about where you suck at and where you're good at, and then how to fix some of those weaknesses, and really guide you into a character building endeavor, if you would. Because a lot of times, in our industry, sure, it could build character, but we define that character kind of differently, kind of what we were just talking about. You need to be tough, this, that, and the other thing, but really building your character to be just a good person, right? To be a good person that is effectively leading people, motivating people, and teaching them the skills of the profession, and being effective on an emergency scene. So who are those people for you? And sometimes you have to, and again, a lot of this comes from my personal experiences, pulling myself out of the culture of the fire service and finding people that I can lean on, that, there's a level of vulnerability and we can have real conversations, and they can help build my weaknesses, build my leadership style. And it's an understanding that in an organization that doesn't promote that type of environment, like, you're going to have to endure that. No matter what you do, no matter how many successes and failures you have, they're going to let you know your failures, and they're going to call you out on that within an organization. But kind of focusing on your outside influences, if you would, and really just enduring that battle as you go through. Like I said, none of this is easy. It's very extremely challenging, and a lot that you can't explain within your organization if you choose to go down this road, because nobody's going to understand it except you and the people who support you. So, it's pulling yourself out, finding your group of people that are really going to help build you, not just as a firefighter, but as a human being, as a leader, so you can be effective when you are a boss and when you are a leader within your organization.
And to flip this conversation around a little bit, those of you or those of us working in organizations that I feel like are getting it right, not 100% of the time, but doing pretty good with this stuff, you have to sell that too. Because I all of the time am looking for ways when I'm outside of my organization to tell others in other organizations that are at executive leadership roles what we are doing and how we are doing it and what that's doing for us. So when we do captain's process, we invite outside assessors, which is great for neutrality to help with some of the bias from internal only assessors. But I also like to invite people so they can see the products of the way we treat people, the high expectations we hold, but really how we treat people. And they come in and watch our people assess and they're like, "Oh my gosh, your people are amazing." And I'm like, "That's because we did this and this and this for them." And it's a two-way street for us as we get these outside assessors, but also they get to see we're not just talking the talk. This is what has happened to our performance and to the culture of our organization, and we're fully staffed. And I also talk about it all of the time at the training officers meetings. I sit on a Hampton Roads training officers group, and Chief Carter that we interviewed, he and I are on that same group. And I talk all the time about the different things that we do to improve leadership, to improve the culture, to improve our decision-making capabilities and all that stuff. So you got to spread the word too. If you're working for somewhere or you're working just for someone, spread the word so that people start to go, "Huh, it's working there. What are we doing wrong?"
Yeah. Yeah. It totally goes in line, thinking that you have to understand too that you are not going to change people in leadership roles, especially the older they are. You're just not going to. So if you're out there trying to, stop. Now you can do that by, as Kerry, you said, Kerry, you've seeing things that are working out there, start talking about them in your organization. You personally start implementing some of the strategies, and then maybe over time and influence, you can change people coming in the industry. But if you're trying to change people above you, good luck. And if you've done it, let me know. Shoot me an email, let me know. And I'd love to hear how you did that, because that is to get over that mindset of, I got to change this, and it's everything above you. It's not going to happen. And that's like a road. You're going to be better served spending time building yourself with people who get you, that you don't need to, try to get to understand you, but you finding your people and you continually do the work to grow as a professional and as a person, than trying to put in an effort to try and change, a hierarchy that you're not going to have an influence, right? Because let's face it, the egos in our industry are rather high. So good luck with that. So if you're doing that, I would encourage you to stop and, where can you better serve your time? And that's, building you, finding your people, pulling yourself out of that box and taking this overlook of your organization. Again, all these things are extremely challenging to do.
Yeah. I'm reading Colin Powell's book. It worked for me. It's fantastic. It's so
Yeah.
good. And it's simple stuff, but it's backed up with really hardcore life experience. But he talks about, and we can talk about it today because it goes along with our topic, that in the upper levels of leadership in the military, he says, do not hide or transfer your ineffective, poor, crappy leaders. Get rid of them. In the fire service, we transfer those people around or we try to hide them in other positions, but we can't do that, right?
Right.
I mean, it's really, really hard it's someone in a leadership position to get rid of them, but we do hide them and we do move them around. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do we do for that? When you've got somebody you're stuck with that's in a leadership role and they're bringing people down, you transfer them into position, but every position in the fire service, especially in upper admin, because there's so, so few positions, they're very necessary positions. What do you
Right.
do with them?
Yeah, well, in that scenario, it's almost that the rest of the administrative base is, good leaders and they can effectively do that change. But again, if you're that mid level, lower level and you're dealing with that, like that's therein lies the challenge because you're not going to change them. You don't have the ability to move them. You don't have the ability to get rid of them. So it becomes this thing that you have to learn to live with, and whether you like it or not, and it builds that builds character in and of itself. But again, it's how to kind of just keep going, I guess, how to live in those environments. Every experience that we have in life, whether it's good or bad, is going to teach us a lesson. So I think, when you start learning that and you start maturing as an adult, right? I mean, what do they say? A male's brain isn't fully developed to 25, 30 years old. So you're coming into the industry and you're not fully developed yet. So it's taking these experiences and what can you learn from them? Because in all reality, I could say, maybe I could say this for me, but I learned more lessons on leadership on what not to be, right? So we can take these lessons, see what's not working, and like, no, and a lot of times we can go back and we can start looking that it's a lot of cliche traits from what you think being a firefighter is, and those are just not effective, so take the lesson, I guess. And it's a hard lesson, and life is going to be full of hard lessons and dealing with people that we don't want to deal with and working for people we don't want to work for. It just is what it is. But those experiences have the ability to teach you some pretty good lessons. And, we really, I think a lot of growth happens through struggle. And when we face struggles of many kinds, we can come out a lot better because of those struggles. So take that, take advantage of those situations. Again, I keep saying it through this episode. All this is much easier said than done, and I totally get that. But taking advantage of those experiences so you can build and continue to learn as a leader, knowing that you're not going to change that upper echelon, or you're not going to be able to move somebody or any of those things, and, just keep grinding away.
Yeah. And I think any chance, I know you can't change you can't change the
Yeah.
people that are, but like any chance you get to show it, to keep doing that and keep trying to show what's right and talking about it. And I, I don't know. Sometimes I think, because I have folks around me that don't believe a ton in like the emotional intelligence stuff and this kind of work, but I still will show up to meetings sometimes or play corny videos about emotional intelligence and try to play get to know you games in the meetings. And even people that hate it, I still feel like deep down, maybe they're taking something away from it if I keep just trying.
And that's that resiliency. Like you have an ability to keep trying and stuff. I think,
Yep.
as you are learning leadership and you have that growth mindset and you want to keep going, two things, there's going to be two responses, right? One, kind of the responses you get when you bring up stuff, like maybe tongue-in-cheek responses, people are going to listen, and that's that. Or two, I think sometimes you could be looked at as a threat to people who may not be as effective leaders as you, may not be as good at the job as you, but they're in a higher position. So when you're looked at as a threat, get ready.
Yeah.
Especially if you start making some positive changes in your life personally, you start bringing some things to the table that you think would enact great change within your organization, get ready, because those people are coming after you and they're going to do whatever they can to make you look bad. They're going to talk about you and they're going to do those things. And this is reality, whether we want to talk about it or not. And again, not just in the fire service, but it's true. When you are in a position as a young person and you come in, right? We're seeing people coming into our industry a lot more educated this day and age, which I think is good. But you bring somebody new, and they're educated and they're hitting all these benchmarks within their training and they're doing very well, and they want to bring up change and talk about leadership and this and stuff. And there's people in leadership roles that are not there and they're threatened by you. Like I said, get ready, because that's going to be a whole nother ball game of the things that you're just going to have to learn to overcome, and I think that that is the challenge, right? How do you just keep going year after year after year and nothing changes, and you just keep riding down this road of, what needs to happen. You wish it could happen, but it's not happening. And every time, sometimes you open your mouth, it's just like you're beat down more, whether it's there's threats or whatever the cause. So it's, again, for my encouragement to you is just keep going. You're in this journey for a reason. You have these experiences in front of you for a reason. There's a lot of value in all these experiences, and it's taking the good away out of everything, because you don't know when your turn is coming up, and then you're going to have that opportunity to be that leader for people that you never had. And I think that's, hopefully that's the case for most people, that one day it all makes sense for you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That you become a threat or you're seen as a threat. I've seen that so many times in multiple organizations, and I can think of some people specifically in another jurisdiction near me, and these guys are just doing such great things, but they really are they get beat down because they think they're a threat to the culture of the organization, which is crazy because the culture sucks. So it's like, you're threatening to change a crappy culture? What? So, but, yeah, and I look at those guys and I see them occasionally come into to things, to trainings and stuff, and you can just tell they're beat down, and but then they get back in it because I think they know that one day their change is coming, and it'll be their organization and the way that they have tried to make it, and it eventually will get there. You just gotta, like you said, have some resiliency and keep going, which is tough.
Yeah, and that old adage that everybody always says, you don't need rank to be a leader. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of truth behind that. I think we're at a time where there's a lot of young people coming into organizations. Again, I think I was telling you, like, I'm about to turn 40, but we go on calls and I'm like the oldest one, and
Yeah.
not by a little bit, and you're looking around and you're like, oh my, when did this happen? But it's an opportunity, right? And sometimes personally, like, I lose motivation because you're just like, you've grinded for so long and you're like, I'm just tired and it is what it is. I'm not changing anything. And, disgruntled, whatever the case may be, burnt out. But sometimes, it's okay when you've had enough as well. And
Yeah.
I definitely want to say that. I'm not telling anybody out there just to keep grinding and it's sucking the life out of you. Sometimes it's okay to take a rest, and give yourself grace and sit back and just be grateful for the opportunity that you get to go serve the public and do what you do, and just maybe check out a little bit, but still do your job. And it's okay to ebb and flow like that, right? Life is not easy. We have personal things going on as well. So, sometimes maybe we just need to take a back seat. Maybe you've been grinding away, reading all the books, right? Listening to all the podcasts, and maybe just turn it off. Turn it off, and give yourself a break to just live and be present in the moment and enjoy the finer things in life and the things and the people that surround you, because you need to pull yourself out of that sometimes. And if you feel those moments coming where you're getting disgruntled and you're losing that motivation, again, that's why you build your people, regardless of where that is. But besides that, it's just being able to take a break within what you're trying to do, because it's a lot of work, and it'll weigh on you an entire career, and it could get you to the point where you're either, I'm done, and you're completely checked out, burnt out, you're going to wait, retire and leave, or you're going to conform and you're just going to be part of them and become part of the problem that you're trying to fix. And obviously we don't want both. We don't want either of those. So it's, just maintaining that mental clarity throughout that journey and being okay with checking out and being okay with the ridicule that's going to come from that, because you're doing it for a reason. And again, that's the value of building relationships outside and having the circle of people that you can lean on, especially during those times.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely ebb and flow in the amount of engagement, and sometimes, like this summer, it was so nice. I read beach books, and I didn't do a bunch of, self-improvement stuff like I'm normally, like, always at least reading one self-improvement thing and then one book for pleasure. But this summer I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna read cheesy romance beach books and funny, love stories," and I loved it. It was fabulous. And this summer, really, I think because 'cause I'm such a summer girl and I take a lot of time off in the summer, but I I was coming to work and I was getting my stuff done, but I wasn't like, I'm 100 miles an hour a lot of times at work on stuff. And I just was like maybe 50 miles an hour getting the stuff done that had to be done. And now I'm back in and I'm like ready to roll. And I feel so rejuvenated and back engaged. And I'm churning out stuff this last couple weeks. And it was definitely worth it to kind of unplug, but still meet my responsibilities, but just unplug and do what makes Kerry happy.
Yep, I'm with you there. I like turned off
Yeah.
all my podcasts, all the books. I'm like, all right, I need to get back into it a little bit. But now I'm like looking for fiction. Like I want a story,
Yeah.
Because as in terms of like reading leadership books, once you've read a couple, you've read them all. Like it's just the same concepts, just put different. And some authors are better than others. So keep reading, keep improving yourself out there for sure. But yeah, don't.
Hey, what if I write a book? Now you just told everybody not to read my book.
Well,
Just
no.
kidding.
Are you writing a book?
No, but I want to.
We should talk about that because
Yeah.
some things have happened over the last week or two, and I was like, I think we need to write a book. Anyway,
Yeah.
anyways,
Write a book.
like here's your sign type thing. I was like, huh, interesting. So yeah, I think kind of not being afraid to take that mental break and check out is going to definitely be a lot of value if you're in that kind of environment and taking that journey. As we look at these journeys, I wish I could give you all simple answers because I know from going out and speaking that we hear this all the time.
Every time. Every time.
And
In
you're,
different versions of
yeah,
sometimes it's my whole organization, sometimes it's just this guy or girl I work for,
mhm,
sometimes it's a version of that same question every time. And I have such a hard time answering that other than just stay the course. You got it. Like, here's your pep talk.
right.
Call me if you need me.
Right. Yeah, and like sometimes that's all you can do because
Yeah.
like like I get it. It's hard and we don't have that easy answer and I wish we could give you that easy answer, but there just isn't one. There are a lot of strategies like what we've talked about today that you can take on to help you get I don't want to use the word get through because you're not just going to get through it, but there's, like I said, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things, but you just got to stay focused. And I think you really stay focused. Kerry and I talk a lot about identity and like who you are outside of the firehouse and focus on building you as a person, I think is extremely valuable. Now I will give maybe the most unpopular opinion of it all. If you really find yourself in this, I think we're at a very interesting time in society and our industry. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities opening up across the country, even in union states, where organizations are going to start, like for us, everything is dictated, a lot of dictated by state law from promotional processes and stuff like that. But I think you're going to start seeing a lot of places going outside for even company officers, maybe engineers, battalion chiefs, whatever, outside of their organizations and maybe to get a more competitive pool. I don't know. I think you see a lot of young people coming in now that aren't going to be qualified to take these positions. So I don't want to say just give up and leave, right? That's not my intent when I say this, but you can leave.
Yeah.
I think, and don't be afraid to do that. Again, I'm not saying go put your 2 weeks in, but a lot of people who have this growth
You're
mind,
about to get all this mail. I quit my job.
right? What do I do now? No, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's evaluating everything. And I look at people who go down this road, right, and have this growth mindset and are challenging the norm and want to affect good change. The mindsets of people like that is that you have a lot of opportunity out in this world that you may not even be aware of. Again, I'm not saying quit. I'm not saying leave the fire service at all, but you bring something to the table that not a lot of people bring. And so it's continuing to build your leadership ability. I'm a big supporter and proponent of getting your formal education because you just don't know what lies next. If you do want to leave the industry and you take all your lessons and go apply it in a private sector position where you're going to excel and you find that environment that you're always looking for. So there's many avenues. So don't be afraid to explore. What else is out there? What other opportunities are for people like me? Because effective leadership that you're trying to build is wanted in everywhere. And sometimes it's just hard to get that foot in the door. So it's keep building and keep learning and keep growing and formal education. keep doing that stuff to make you qualified on paper, but then just to build you as a character and as an effective leader. And then doors open. Doors open for you that you might not even expect. And all the experiences that you went through prepared you just for that. So it's not going to be all for naught. It's all going to be for a much greater purpose. And so that's my encouragement for you is, don't just go and quit. And I get that a lot of people join the industry for the passion and desire, like cool. But there's going to be, I really feel there's going to be a lot of opportunities for being able to promote outside of your organization. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just looking at
It's happening here.
Yeah, just looking at the forecast on what's coming, and you're just like they're going to have to, because there's just not a pool of people. So, seeing that and just, putting your feelers out there and continuing down this road and seeking out opportunities that might fit who you are and your personality. Look, a lot of us get into this profession and we talk about identity, but you find out like what really drives you, and you can use that in many facets of a profession. So it's not necessarily the job itself, but where can you use the things that drive you? And it might be something that you're not even completely aware of. So don't be afraid of that. Sometimes I feel like we give these talks and stuff, and I'm like, there's somebody out there that needed to hear this today. It was just on my heart. Like, we were talking about what we want to talk about. And this is the thing that it was on my heart today, that I was like, we need to have this episode, because I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle down this path. And, you're not alone in any of this. And if you have those struggles, reach out to us and talk to us, and we'll keep the conversation going, because we're willing to have that conversation. We're willing to be told we're wrong, and, to explore different options and bring new ideas to this podcast and spark our interest, because that's what it's about. It's about growing and not just staying stagnant. So, you just got to keep on keeping on, right?
And you're so right. Around here, there's definitely been, battalion chief positions, people going outside, definitely assistant chief spots all the time opening up. Definitely seeing battalions. I've seen actually a department north of here, Northern Virginia, open up for company officer level positions from the outside. And if you are already like in this mindset and practicing this, and you apply somewhere, what a breath of fresh air for that department that you would be. People are craving this, and if you've got that already, and you're going to these interviews, I promise you're going to be a breath of fresh air to an organization that's going to appreciate that. Not saying, hey, go leave your job, but
right.
It's true. And especially these specialty positions, because the old school fire service and these chiefs that stayed for 40 years, are now retiring. And it's a bunch of very young fire chiefs around the nation that the people before them didn't set their organizations up great for succession planning. So that if you can't promote from within, that's your own fault.
Yeah.
You should be creating and cultivating officers that can take your spot. And now I feel like we have a bunch of young fire chiefs that are going to do that, and they're working on that, but it's going to take a bit, right? Mm-hmm. They're having to rebuild an organization and in a new mindset. And so really you could be a breath of fresh air somewhere.
Yeah. And, going and putting yourself out there and just seeing what the opportunity, again, if you're that mid-level and you got 10 years on, you got some education, I challenge you, go see what else is out there and interview for some positions. The cool thing about that is, you get to sit on interviews and you get to interview them just as much as they're interviewing you. You don't, and you can feel a room. You absolutely know as soon as you walk in the door, this is going to be the same old, or this has the potential to be something else. And if it's going to be the same old, do the interview for some personal gain and experience and leave, and know you're not going to take that position. So, there's a lot of opportunity out there. That's my encouragement. There is a lot of opportunity and for people in this profession, and especially with some education behind you, and for the things that you bring, and for the people with this mindset and want to continue to build and grow and bring about progress and a positive change. There's people want that out there. So keep going. I wish I had an easy answer.
Yeah, I know.
But we don't. But we could keep the conversation going. I think that's the important thing, is keeping it going. Don't stop, and find your people, take your breaks when you need to. And that's as simple as I can make it, Kerry. I can't make it much simpler than that.
Nope. Simple but hard. Yeah. Well, this has been great.
It has. Yeah. And on that note, just as we are talking today and, we talk about us going out and speaking and talking to different audiences, if you are interested or your department is interested to have us out and keep these conversations going on a, more intimate level, please reach out to us and we'd love to have a conversation and see what we can do to get in and speak. We early 2025, we'll be back in Texas and then Virginia. So our regular tour starts back up, which always excited about that.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Well, it's a nice fall day here in the Midwest here in Illinois. So we're about 65 today. So hope everybody has a good weekend out there. And until next time, we'll see you.
All righty. Take care.
As we wrap up another episode, this has been Kyle
And Kerry
from the Heat of Command podcast.
Thank you, as always, for listening. Please make sure to follow and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And as always, we love the feedback. Keep it coming.
See you next time.